It is great to be back. The things we cannot take for granted. We could make a shechayanu, people seeing each other that haven't seen each other for a year or two. For many of us, it's a first community event, and it's very, very exciting. We see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we are very, very optimistic and excited that you're here, grateful and thankful. This year in NCSY, we had to be super innovative and creative, and it was an exciting, amazing, fantastic year. I'm just kidding. It was really, really, really very, very hard. It was hard for everybody, I think particularly for teenagers, educationally, socially, emotionally, and certainly spiritually. It was very, very, very challenging. But I wanted to share with you that just 5 weeks ago, we had, I know in NCSY, the only in-person hotel Shabbaton with 90 teenagers. I don't know of any other convention that happened by May 20th. I think we were the first. We also happened to have been the last. Rabbi Katz, Young Israel Oak Park, hosted us for the Fall Shabbaton on March 7th. The Shabbaton that probably should not have happened. We sought guidance from all the doctors in the health department and the leadership and our brain trust. And then on Monday, we found out that 6 Cleveland kids had traveled from Washington APAC convention on a bus with a person who came down with COVID. So we should have been a spreader event. Thank God none of those 6 kids got it, and we were not. But that Monday morning, I called my boss and I said, it's over. No more conversations. Detroit is woke. And we were a little slow. I think it was Wednesday that YU shut down. But it was amazing. But 5 weeks ago, we had an in-person Shabbaton. We felt that we had to do it. The kids were begging for it. The kids were vaccinated. Why can't we do this? We want to do this. We need to do this. We have to. We're graduating high school, and we haven't had one. The incoming class, everybody was begging us. And it was a massive, massive gamble. Because the teens, NCSY is all about social momentum, and our tanks were running on empty. And our biggest fear was that we'd do a convention and spend a lot of money and put a lot of effort, and the kids would say, thank you for trying, as teenagers are wont to do. But thank God, they walked away. It was a very different kind of event. It was a leadership event. It was much more mature. We only had 16 and above because those were the kids who were vaccinated. And it was much more intimate. It was much more substantive. It was much more direct. It was much more serious. It was much more mature. And the kids walked away and they said, we should do this every year. So thank God. There was a tremendous amount of excitement, and we are looking forward to our next year with tremendous, tremendous enthusiasm. And all I can tell you, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because my message is now more than ever. Now more than ever, we have to double our efforts. We need your help more than ever. This is so, so important because the spiritual price that we have paid and to rebuild is going to take a lot. It's going to take a real, real lot. And it is so, so very, very vital and important. And we could not do it without you. These last 2 months have been crazy because everything we were doing was spontaneous and trying to make decisions with information that we didn't have for that convention, for this fundraiser, not knowing what the next day would bring. And it was the craziest 2 months. And I really, really have to thank Eva, my assistant, who the last 2 months were the hardest months ever, and she did a magnificent, magnificent job. Thank you so, so, so much. Beyond anything that ever happened before. And that reminds me, doing this regional convention without our event coordinator was really, really hard. For 15 years, we had an event coordinator, and it's like when my wife leaves town, I'm good for the first day, and what's the big deal? It's not so difficult. day 2 and day 3, when you realize what goes in, oh boy, oh boy. So we tried to do a convention without her. We did, thank God. But oh boy, did we realize how we really took for granted all the smoothness of all of our events for Henna Milwern. We'd like to have a special Koshel Bracha. Mikey Scotchless, if you could present her with a Koshel Bracha. Thank you so much. So it's a little warm. We're going to move this. By the way, this is the fastest moving fundraiser you've ever attended if this is your first time here. And that's why everybody's here. So we're going to move you in faster because it's a little bit warm. But we every year have an amazing group of philanthropists, donors who make generous contributions in underwriting scholarships for kids. This summer, we had 600 cancellations for our summer enrollment, and we still have 2,100 students going on NCSY summer. And for the first time, because under 16, so we couldn't go to Israel so easily, so we have about 600 in domestic programs that have just been invented and just been created. Amazing what they've done. And there are 1,600 kids going to Israel. And that is really fantastic. And some parents here have their children on the way to Israel right now, and that's a beautiful thing. And that happens through the scholarships that we very much appreciate. So we're not going to call everybody up to receive their scholarships, but there is the Mikey Butler Scholarship that Paul and Jay Novetzky have underwritten. And then there's the Noam Carmen Memorial Scholarship that Stacy Carmen and her family have underwritten. And there is the Eisenberg Scholarship for Meyer and Bessie Eisenberg, and we wish a refuah shlema to Baruch Yaakov ben Pessel. He should have a refuah shlema. And there's the Ray and Samuel Morris Rosenberg Memorial Scholarship, sponsored by Shirley and Dr. Larry Lowenthal. And then there is the Alex and Devorah Stiebel Scholarship, sponsored by the Stiebel and the Klein families. Those scholarships are being awarded to, most of the teens are not even in town, Bram Hoffman, Jacob Kleiman, David Kleiman, Nathan Yusufov, Noah Becker, Leora Goldberg, and Ben Taylor Apt. So for the last close to 30 years, very good friends of NCSY have always been the Lowenthals. And a couple years ago, they moved to Israel. And they've been coming here summers. But this summer, they're selling their home. And they say they're coming back in the summers, but we're afraid they may not. And we want to make sure they remember us. So they have been pillars of our community in Farber, in Young Israel Southfield, in NCSY, and just an inspiration. What Dr. Lowenthal and Dr. Novetzky did about 30, 40 years ago in reinventing how cataracts are done in Israel, giving vision to so many more people. What an inspiration, what they did in expediting and making cataract surgeries so much more simpler and faster and easier and more accessible. Just an inspirational people. And I wanted to present this little gift tonight. I wanted to have Jenny. Jenny, 10 years ago, Rabbi Lichter came to me and said, there's this great girl, New American Family, she needs to go on a summer program. Now, summer program, in case you don't know, is like a half a year's tuition. It's a big deal. And getting 2,600 kids on summer programs is a major accomplishment. So we went to the Lowenthals and we asked them to take a bet, to gamble on Jenny Pesakova. And today, Jenny is not here. She had to take a class and she was unable to make it here, but she is the interim chapter director who's doing a fantastic job. Really innovative and creative and doing, we had more one-on-one learning going on this year than ever before. And every Wednesday night, 25, 30 kids had a Beis Medrash night, and that was all her doing. And she's not here to present, but I asked Shoshana, who is a student of Jenny's. She just came back from Israel. She would not have gone to Israel had it not been for Jenny. So this is compounded dividends for the Lowenthals. So I'm asking Shoshana if she could help present this gift. And I also want to ask Mikey to present this gift because 3 years ago, we said goodbye to him and he's still here. So we want to inspire the Lowenthals to be here next year.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Michal. I grew up in the Detroit community, but I currently live in Brooklyn, New York with my husband and my daughter. She's 10 months old. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was born in Azerbaijan and I am one of 4 siblings. I have 3 younger brothers. And my parents and I, we moved to America when I was just 2 years old. So for those of you who don't know, Azerbaijan is a former Soviet country, so communism was practiced there for the majority of my grandparents' life and my parents' life. So religion was completely banned. No one knew anything about Judaism unless they had things that were passed down from their grandparents. So my great-grandparents, they practiced Judaism, they kept Shabbat, they lit Shabbat candles, they had separate utensils for milk and meat. My mom has a Siddur and like a few books of Torah that her grandfather had, and his tefillin. Like all the grandkids kind of like fight over like who's gonna inherit it because it's like over 100 years old, which is like very cool for us. And yeah, so even though they weren't able to practice Judaism, they always valued giving me and my brothers a Jewish education. So I went to Farber Hebrew Day School. I graduated from there as well, and I loved the community there. I made such great friends there. Like I cherish them as siblings up until this day. I'm very close with all of them. So it was very special there. So just a little story of what happened one time in Farber. I was in 10th grade, and it was picture day. I was getting my picture taken, and I was waiting in line with a former NCSY rabbi. His name was Rabbi Lichtig, and Rabbi Lichtig was also my Chumash rabbi at the time. He taught me every morning at 9 a.m., me and my classmates. So he was telling me how there was this new woman, young Jewish woman moving into the community, and he's like, she's so cool, you guys are all gonna love her. He's like, you guys don't understand, like, you guys are lucky that you get to have her. He's like, a woman like her doesn't exist in New York and Chicago, Miami. He's like, the fact that she's moving to Detroit is a very big deal. She married a man here. And yeah, so at the time, I didn't have a young Jewish role model that I could like look up to like that. So in my head, I'm like, okay, she wears long skirts. Like, that's just what I pictured. So little did you know, a few minutes later, I happened to meet this woman, and she was very humble, very sweet, energetic. I like somehow felt like I knew her for like 20 years already, and I was like very comfortable with her. She was like modest both in and out, and her name was Erin Stiebel. So throughout the school year, Erin Stiebel would occasionally substitute as my Chumash teacher. She would also give classes at the Jewish Scholars Program right here at Aish, and I would go to them. And Erin would tell me about how she is the director of this summer program called Give. So just to tell you a little about what Give is, it's a touring and volunteering program in Israel. And let's say during the morning, you'll go to an orphanage in Netanya, and you'll volunteer there, and we'll bring activities and everything. And then in the afternoon, you'll go to the beach. So it was something that sounded really special to me, that you're able to connect to so many people that live in Israel and have fun there as well. So I really wanted to go. But my dad was very strict, traditional Sephardi. He didn't want me to like leave the house for the summer, yet alone go halfway across the world. But he trusted NCSY, he trusted the program, and he knew I was going to be in good hands, and he let me go. And needless to say, like, I know the expression is best summer ever, but every year when it is June, I'm like, how many summers ago did I go and Give? Because that's just how much the program stood out to me, and it was 8 years ago. And to this day, it's made such a strong impact on my life, and I'm like forever grateful for it. On Give, I was very inspired once I came home. And my family, we were very traditional. We had Friday night meals, we kept the holidays, we respected religion, we loved it, but we didn't keep Shabbat like 100%. And I felt like as a Jew coming back from Israel, that's something I had to do. So that's something that I did, and my parents really respected me for it, and they supported me 100%. And a few months later, maybe even a year later, they decided to follow through as well. My family lives in Kego Harbor, and if you guys aren't so familiar with where it is, it's part of West Bloomfield Township. And there's no Orthodox minyan in the community whatsoever, so they walk every morning on Shabbat, rain or shine, in the freezing Michigan cold and like the humid summers that we have today. Like it's 3 miles there, 3 miles back. So they're really a part of the community there. They love it. They love them. So thank God it's worked out so well. And yeah. And every day I always think about how like incredible it is that Erin is like sitting here and like afterwards she plans her job and she's a director of Give and she's like, okay, I'm planning a program for a 16-year-old girl. Like that's what her mission is. But little does she know how far of a ripple effect and domino effect that has on so many people. Like it happened to me and then it happened to my family and then it happened to my other family relatives and it happened to my friends. Like I served on the Detroit chapter board, the regional board. After my year in seminary, I was an advisor for 2 years. I went on NCSY summer. And I'm just so grateful for that experience. And I just want to thank Erin and David. Like your magnitude of success is just so inspiring. And it's just like such a great feeling that you guys have to go to bed every night and you think that you've just like helped the Jewish people so much and like you're rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash, especially during these times, and it's just really inspiring, and I would like to thank you for that.
Michal, that was absolutely, absolutely very, very special. And what she didn't mention is that any of you who shop in Suit Depot, if you know the owner of the tailor shop there, he's a master craftsman, and he's a incredible customer service. There's a little plug here. Little plug here. Everybody loves Raymond. That's Roman. Roman, who'll make you look sharp. He'll really make you look sharp, and that's their beautiful, beautiful, beautiful family, and that was inspired by the Stiebels. I did forget to do one thing, and that is thank our hostess, Chayla Levitz. She's been working on this for 3 weeks and all day today. Really, 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 really quite amazing. Quite amazing. Even when it's not in her backyard, she is sweating all the details, literally. Yeah. So every day before Shema, we say the same Bilibenu, Bina lahavan lahaskel lishma lilmo lishmar v'lasos l'kayim yiskol divrei Salmo Torasecha be'ahava. That we ask Hashem to instill in us a love for His Torah, for His mitzvos, an understanding, a comprehension, a depth, that we should be able to fulfill our mission, and we should be able to teach other people, and we should do it with love. If NCSY created an illustrated siddur, next to that sentence would be a picture of the Stiebel family. It is literally no exaggeration. That is what they exemplify. And anybody who knows them, this is no exaggeration. Their home is always open. It's not just on Shabbos. It's not just for certain type of people. It's for all people. They are wise counsel to all their neighbors. NCSY seeks their advice and their wisdom all the time, and much of our success is in their hands. And what Erin does as the director of young leadership of Partners in Torah is remarkable, remarkable, remarkable. And what she does in the summers, for the last 12 summers, she has influenced well over 1,000 Michals, and so many others, parents here know this kind of summers they had under her tutelage, under her direction. And David is an totally equal partner. He's an executive with Bain, and he's a businessman, but he is totally, totally engaged in everything that they do. And he is somebody who is a tremendous inspiration. And together, they are raising a remarkable, remarkable family. And it is just I told them, we're not doing this to thank you. And we're not doing this to honor you. I'm just a very, very cheap salesman. And I'm bringing samples. This is what you, supporters of NCSY, are enabling us to do, because this is a family that was inspired by NCSY and is continuing to inspire and inspiring other people who inspire, and it's just a magnificent, magnificent thing. And without further ado, I'd like to ask, we're not giving you a plaque, we're giving you a bracha. We're giving you some artwork, the tefillah that we say when we light the Shabbos candles, and we ask that Hashem should give us, bless our children with all the things that we desire. So we're giving you that bracha, that what you do for Hashem's children, for your 5 beautiful, beautiful children, and I have to acknowledge Mrs. Cooper, who has raised an incredible, incredible daughter. And I told her earlier today, there's nothing that we could say that will be understated. I mean, it's just, anything we'll say will be totally understated because we cannot really do justice in words to what an incredible daughter you have raised and what incredible family you have. And I'd like to ask the Stiebels to come and accept this bracha and say a few words. So, on behalf of everybody here and all of NCSY, we give you the bracha that the tefillah that you make when you light the Shabbos candle should be fulfilled in your children in the highest, highest way.
Okay, thank you, everybody. First of all, thank you, Tali. I mean, I can't even state that enough. Thank you for this dinner, for the kind words, for everything. Thank you, Chaya. Where are you? Are you over there? Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's such an honor to be honored at this annual event. I really look forward to this every year, somewhat for the stakes, but also for the inspiration and the company. Really, I love NCSY. In short, it's really an incredible organization. It does such amazing things for Jewish high schoolers, Jewish middle schoolers, Jewish youth, and also for the alumni and anyone who's kind of zocheh to be connected to it. So I want to tell you a little bit about my NCSY journey, but before I just want to start with a sort of a short Dvar Torah from the Parsha that I think is very relevant. So this week's Parsha, we learn about the Korban Tamid. The Korban Tamid was the daily offering that was brought in the temple, and it was interesting because there was one lamb that was brought in the morning and a lamb that was brought in the afternoon, in the very, very end of the day. And we learned them from a variety of places. Even though it seemed like a very simple offering, it was just brought every day, never changed. It was held up as one of the most important things in the Torah, was this daily offering. And the most, kind of the famous idea behind it is consistency, right? Consistency every day. That's why it's so important. It seems so simple, but consistency day to day. But I want to say maybe a different idea. Because the question is, why are there 2 every day? There's one in the morning. The very, very first thing is the small little lamb. And then one at the very end of the day, very similar lamb. Wouldn't one have sufficed? Why 2 in the same day at the beginning and end? So I wanted to say that maybe an answer is that even though they look the same, if everything was the same, that wouldn't be a success. That even between the morning and the end of the day, there should be some growth. There should be some difference, some change, some movement. So even though maybe on the surface it looks the same, that's not what Hashem wants. He wants slight different growth. He wants to be a slightly different level, even though it might look the same. So I want to tell you about my journey, and you'll see how this connects. My sister and I came from a traditional Jewish home. We were introduced to NCSY while we were at the Frankel Jewish Academy, which actually some of the founders are actually here at the table. So thank you for starting that school. And my sister became very involved in NCSY. She was a year older than me, and she jumped right in. Totally drank the Kool-Aid right away. My journey was definitely a little bit longer, and I don't, Sally might not have said I was the ideal NCSY. I mean, he never said it out loud, but I don't think I followed the exact path. I attended a few Shabbatons here and there. I even spent Pesach Seder at Sally's house, which was incredible. And he even persuaded me to attend Yarchei Kala, which was this big week-long winter break Torah learning thing. But I slept through my alarm and I missed the bus, and I missed the whole thing. So that was not quite the ideal. And so despite all of Sally's effort, he actually never got me to go on a NCSY summer program, which now that I'm married to Erin and go to Give every summer, I realize what I missed. But he never got me to go on. He never could persuade me. Instead, I actually went to math camp every summer. Yes, math camp. Honestly, it was very fun. And at the end of high school, I opted not to go to yeshiva. I opted to go straight to college. I just couldn't. I'd always dreamed of going to MIT. I couldn't kind of bring myself to put it off for a year. And honestly, what was underlying all of it was that for me, a big flip in my Judaism, it was not going to happen. I didn't see that happening. And I think that's true for most NCSYers who, they don't magically become observant or Shomer Shabbos overnight. Instead, at NCSY, through the Shabbatons, through the events, through the learning, through the mentors, they get a little taste of Judaism, of something bigger, taste of Torah study, that taste of growth and excitement. And that, I think, is what they take with them throughout their life. And many of them maybe over time become more observant, more committed slowly over time. And that's what happened to me. If you had been watching my journey since I was a high schooler through college and after college, you might not have noticed the changes day to day. I didn't just flip and become Shomer Shabbos. I didn't just start keeping kosher overnight. My morning offering probably looked the same as my evening offering. But there was a little bit of change. There was a slight upward trajectory that NCSY had planted that seed. And I think that's the message of the Korban Tamid, is that you have to have at least a somewhat upward trajectory. That's what Hashem wants. He doesn't want the same lamb in the morning and the evening. He wants a little bit different, and even that type of growth is important and meaningful. It's not necessarily about the big flips. And that's what happened to me. Little by little, I got to college. I decided to fall in with the Shomer Shabbos crowd at Hillel. I joined a Jewish fraternity. I got involved with the pro-Israel advocacy stuff. I started wearing a kippah. So that one actually was a big flip, to go from no kippah to kippah. But that one was actually an accident. I showed up the first day of college. I went to some sort of Jewish event in the morning. I forgot to take my kippah off. And so I went the whole first day not realizing I was wearing my kippah. And then at the end of the day, I realized, oh, well, now people know me as the kippah guy. So I just kept wearing it. True story. So that's how I started with kippah. But I think that was what NCSY does. It plants a little seed, and it just keeps growing. And not just kind of passively. NCSY and Sally, for sure, actively follow up with their alumni. Once you're part of the NCSY family, you're always part of the family. And, Sally kept in touch for many years. And unfortunately, when my sister and I dealt with the tragedy, my mother passed away and our father passed away, Sally was one of our pillars of support during that time. Now, the final gift, or the puzzle piece that Sally gave me, a few months after my father passed away, I was working in Chicago. It was about 10 years ago. I was juggling Avelis and going to Kaddish and traveling for work. Honestly, not really thinking about or contemplating what my life was, where it was going or anything like that. I saw Sally at some NCSYer's wedding, and he pulled me aside, and he right aside, and he said, "David, you need to go to yeshiva. This is the time. For your dad's neshama, you need to go. You can't just kind of go mindlessly here. Quit your job and go to yeshiva." And as crazy as that sounds, it was the right decision, and that's what I did. And without Sally, I would have missed making that decision. And so I went to Chappelle's Yeshiva in Yerushalayim for a year, and I can't understand, it wasn't life-changing, it was life-making. It really made me who I am today. It let me, Baruch Hashem, I came back, I married Erin, and we have the family, Baruch Hashem, that we have today, Kanara. And it's all because of Tzali and NCSY and his patience with an NCSYer who took a little longer than most to get the message. So, I mean, my story is that if you know a Jewish teenager, regardless of where they are, you need to connect them with NCSY, with Tzali, with Central East. Send them on NCSY summer if they want to go and give. My wife will take care of them. At best, they'll have an experience like my sister or my wife, that lighting their Jewish fire right away. And at minimum, it'll plant a seed like it did for me, leading to lifelong Jewish growth and commitment. I really feel blessed that I got involved with NCSY. And today, my whole family, we're very, very proud supporters every year of NCSY. So I just want to say thank you, Tzali, and thank you, everyone, for coming out and supporting us.
Okay, hard act to follow. Okay, first of all, Michal, way to make me cry, and I don't know how to do things with mascara, so I hope I look okay. So good evening, everyone. Before beginning, a huge thank you to Rabbi Tzali Friedman for making tonight possible, and of course, Mrs. Eva Firestein for doing everything, your hard work, your email, constant kindness. Every email I get from Eva has a little happy face emoji, which makes it so much happier to open. So thank you. And I would just like to also just give a personal thank you to, when I first moved to Detroit, I was set up with a chavrusa through Partners in Torah, Mrs. Riva Klar. I don't know where you are right now, Riva. And we learned together for a year until my first child was born. He's now 7. And Riva said, "I saw that you were being honored. I have such fond memories of NCSY as a child, and I wanted to come tonight." So Riva, it really means so much to me. Thank you for being here. It is so nice to be able to sit together with all of you in person to celebrate and support this fantastic, amazing organization to which David and I both individually and collectively have a tremendous amount of Hakaras Hatov. It's especially wonderful to welcome my mom here, all the way from Maryland. to join us for this beautiful evening. Mommy, I hope we give you a little bit of nachas because you're deserving of the most nachas in the world. My NCSY story begins as many others, so many others. My parents both grew up in NCSY. My father, Alav Shalom, helped start NCSY in Savannah, Georgia. My mom was very active in her chapter in Charleston, South Carolina. So for them, it was just their life source. NCSY gave them community. NCSY gave them connectivity. NCSY gave them peers. And so it was their link for everything. It was their link for Jewish continuity. And for me, despite being in a yeshiva day school, it was a given that I too would be involved in NCSY. It was my legacy. And I was active in NCSY in my local chapter in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I sat on the regional board and I sat on the national board, not to sound too cool. And I attended a truly life-changing NCSY summer program as well after 11th grade, and my involvement with NCSY just continued to grow. And I experienced this joy and this passion and this recognition that I had confidence and to be like the best version of myself I could possibly be. From sharing a room on a Shabbaton with a public schooler who was keeping her first Shabbos to davening alongside my peers from school who sat there and felt this surge of inspiration that was really hard to capture in daily life, NCSY became a place that gave all of us something magical, something soulful. Perhaps it's intangible. It's sort of like trying to explain to someone who's never been to sleepaway camp how like those 8 weeks are like literally life-changing, right? You're like, you come home from camp and you talk to a kid like, how is camp? Like, oh, you'll never understand, right? Like, you can't put into words how amazing it is, how you grow during this time and gain confidence and wisdom that could never, ever be achieved in the 10 months of school. Perhaps it's just the change of scenery, the new opportunities, the recognition that you have this untapped potential that can be mined in this new environment. Perhaps it's the advisors who you look to as role models and think, I want to be cool and inspired like them. And this moment when you're like, oh my gosh, I can be. I'm not exactly sure how to define the magic that is NCSY, but for me, as someone who was gifted a Jewish education and a very strong Jewish identity both in school and at home, NCSY was like this glue that took all of the pieces of my Judaism and melded them together into something more beautiful than I could ever have imagined. It pushed me to be more grounded and inspired, to be the best version of myself and to rise to the occasion to be that for others. It helped me realize how lucky I was to be privileged to a Jewish education and to not take for granted, to always strive to be better. Of course, our life choices are based on an array of experiences and influences, but I do believe that my choice of seminary and college too were deeply influenced by my years in NCSY. Choosing to go to a seminary that would propel me forward and give me lifelong friends, including Detroit NCSY alum Alana Miodovnik, who is here tonight. In terms of role models who inspired me and my peers throughout that journey, NCSY offered me the best and the brightest. My NCSY chapter director, Fagi, who I'm still in touch with 20 years later, not to date myself, you're probably like 20 years, impossible. So we'll just call it 5. 5 years later, she was more than, I'm sorry? She is the daughter of a Central East NCSY, and she actually grew up in Central East, you're right. Sorry, Central East, shout out everybody. So who cares about Atlantic Seaboard? Don't tell them I said that. So Fagi was more than an advisor to me. She was my friend, she was my confidant, she was my teacher. She wore her Judaism with pride and enthusiasm, and I wanted to be just like her. My school friends were all going through the motions, living a halachic and perhaps uninspired version of their Judaism, but by watching Fagi, I knew that there was more. I knew there was more to it. And when I was studying in seminary, I received a box in the mail. It was a package from Fagi. Now, anyone who has been overseas, like several years ago, you know how exciting it was to get that package in the mail, right? It was like you have mail, Erin. I was like, mail. Oh gosh, I open it, and it's a box from Fagi. And of course, inside she puts like all my favorite things, my favorite stacks, a mix CD, not to date myself again, with all of our favorite songs, all this fun swag. And at the bottom of the box was a piece of paper, and I pulled it out, and the piece of paper was an application to staff a summer program that she had started the summer before. She said, I know you're only 19, but let's change lives together this summer. So how could I say no to Faggy? I'm like, of course I was going to do it. Okay, Faggy, I'll do it. I call my parents. They're like, oh, you've been away all year. I'm like, you love me. We love NCSY. It's our legacy. So they're like, okay, have a great time. And that summer turned into another summer and another summer. And that summer program was, of course, NCSY Give, which I've had the privilege to serve as a director of now for 12 years. It's a remarkable thing that seed was planted by somebody choosing to believe and invest in me so long ago. NCSY Give today still embodies everything that Faggy stood for all those years ago. A positive, growth-oriented space where teenage girls are reminded how special they are, how much Hashem loves them, and how they can personally change the world to be a better place. Today, the girls who come on Give are predominantly yeshiva day school kids. And when I ask them in their interview why they have chosen to spend their summer on an NCSY summer program, their answer 9 out of 10 times is, I want a summer of growth. All these years later, we are still filling a void and still doing something right. Give is just a microcosm of what NCSY is doing year-round. And yes, NCSY is a lifeline for unaffiliated youth, and you heard David's story, and it's one of millions, Baruch Hashem. But NCSY is also taking the day school students and making them even greater versions of themselves, kindling the spark that is already there and helping to ignite their soul that much more. Through programs and experiences and learning, NCSYers realize that they are the next link in the chain and that the future of the Jewish people truly rests on their shoulders. They recognize that Hashem has given them each a unique toolbox to personally impact the world. In short, NCSY is magic. David and I live for NCSY. We love crashing centrally Shabbaton, so invite us back. And we love spending our summers on NCSY Give in Israel. And yes, we still sing Havdalah at our home, and sometimes we even dance. And yes, we bench out loud at the table with our precious kids, and sometimes we even do funny hand motions during Zemiros. And yes, I still cherish those informal Torah discussions that force me to challenge my assumptions and to continue to have those conversations with teenagers that I meet today. And yes, I still talk to my advisor, Faggy. In fact, 4 years ago, I attended the wedding of an NCSY Give alum who I was very, very close with and happens to be a cousin of Faggy's. It was the year that my father had passed away and I was in Avelis, and I was very torn. Should I go to this wedding? Should I not go? But we had such a close relationship, I wanted to be there. So I told her I'm going to come. She said, we'll set a seat for you out in the hall, don't worry. So I booked a ticket to fly into New York to be there for the wedding. And I got a call 2 days before the wedding from this NCSYer. She said, I want to let you know that Faggy's RSVP card came in, and she asked to be seated with you outside in the hall. With tears in my eyes, and it still makes me emotional, I realized that this is truly what NCSY is all about. These lessons of arivos, of responsibility for one another, to caring for our children, to investing in personal growth so that we can thereby invest in the Jewish future. These lessons cannot exclusively be taught in a classroom. They are taught by example. I am just one story. Faggy is just one advisor. Michal and her family are just one family in a sea of so many. Give is just one summer program, and Detroit is just one chapter. But I can assure you that investing in just one piece of this remarkable organization means investing in a more inspired, connected, and unbreakable Jewish future. Thank you all for being here tonight.